Hi, so here we are in the streets of Bournemouth. One of the most commonly asked questions I get, apart from how come you look so young for your age, is how do we learn phrasal verbs? I'm often asked if I can recommend a book on phrasal verbs. I can, it's called the English Dictionary. However, because I'm feeling quite generous, we're going to take a look today at some of the most common phrasal verbs that we use every single day of the week. We're going to look at how they work, because there are a few different types. I'm not going to get run over here. So common phrasal verbs that we use every day, and we use phrasal verbs every single day of the week. How do you feel about phrasal verbs?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what is phrasal verb. When I think phrasal verb, I am very confused.
I don't know the phrasal verb yet.
Students often worry about phrasal verbs. They're problematic. Often there's the literal usage meaning, and often there's a more idiomatic meaning. However, they are verbs and they behave like verbs, verb with a particle. But I like to think of it as vocabulary. You either know them or you don't. But the best way to learn phrasal verbs is in context. Often you'll hear a new phrasal verb in the street or talking to English friends, and that's the time to just make a note of it and then ask them what it means or look it up.
Common phrasal verbs.
Pick up, drop off, splash out, fall out, make up, get on with, run out of, get out, bump into, dig up. Phrasal verbs are mainly used informally, conversational, and we often have a Latin-based word which is more formal. Every time you hear a new one, put it in the notebook and then start to use it. I mean, if you don't use them, you're going to forget them anyway, aren't you? Now back to Pete in the studio. A phrasal verb consists of a verb plus an adverb or particle. The purpose of the particle is to change the meaning of the verb. For example, carry on. The verb carry, I carry my bag. Carry on means continue. So this verb plus this particle has changed the meaning of the verb. There are two types of phrasal verb. Group A, phrasal verbs without an object. Group B, phrasal verbs with an object. Now Group A are easy. For example, my car has broken down. No object. Phrasal verbs with an object are slightly more complicated. Some of them are separable and some of them are inseparable. They cannot be separated. Let's look at separable phrasal verbs. I'm going to use the verb take off. She took off her jacket. Take off, past simple, took off. Take off means remove. The opposite is put on. Take off, put on. Be careful, not all phrasal verbs have phrasal verb opposites, okay? The separable phrasal verbs behave in a particular way. We can have the noun phrase after the phrasal verb. She took off her jacket. However, you can also separate the verb from the particle. She took her jacket off. So we have separated the verb from the particle and we put the noun phrase between them. Both are possible, there's no real difference. However, if the object is a personal pronoun, it must go in the middle position. She took off her jacket. She took her jacket off. She took it off. The personal pronoun has to go in the middle position, not in the end position. To show you an example of an inseparable phrasal verb, I'm going to use look after. Look after means to care for. He looks after his mother. He looks after her. He looks his mother after. Now, as you get more familiar with phrasal verbs, hopefully you'll begin to develop an instinct for when it sounds wrong. He looks his mother after doesn't sound good. However, as I've said before, when you're not sure, check in a dictionary. The dictionary will tell you whether it's separable or inseparable. Take off is a great example of how phrasal verbs work and how they can be very confusing. Often there is more than one meaning. Here we have take off. She took off her jacket, which means removed. However, we also use take off for aeroplanes. The aeroplane took off. Take off is the opposite of land. So it's the same verb with a completely different meaning, and also they behave differently. Take off requires an object when we mean remove. Take off for aeroplanes has no object. So the same phrasal verb can have different meanings and also behave differently. Again, a good English dictionary will have a list of the common phrasal verbs. Take on,
off,
take
take
on,
on,
take in, take out.
out.
It goes on. I hope that was useful. Just remember, don't be afraid of them. Think of it as vocabulary. You either know it or you don't.